Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. Salatu wassalamu ala Rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallama tasliman kathiran. Amma ba'd. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh to all Muslims worldwide. With regards to offering SalatulEid, Eid al-Fitr specifically, in the house because of the worldwide pandemic, COVID-19, the coronavirus, is it permissible? Is it from the Sunnah? Is it obligatory? What scholars have held the view, or which alim gave that fatwa that it is permissible to be done? And if it is permissible and if it is obligatory, then how should it be made in the household? How should a person offer SalatulEid in the household? Alhamdulillah, we're going to try our best to keep this video as brief as possible and avoid any unnecessary lengthy explanations or arguments or debates. We are strong believers here at HadithDisciple in the principle, from one thing, learn 10,000 things. Or another version of the translation says, from one thing, understand myriad things. So, student of knowledge, scholar, layman, you have to understand that fiqh rulings are oftentimes based off of each other. Proofs and evidences lead to fiqh rulings. Fiqh principles are based off of fiqh proofs and evidences, etc. So there's always a triangle, there's always a circle, there's always a connection, there's always a circuit, an electrical circuit. Okay, it starts here, it goes there, AC, DC, so on and so forth. There's always a conductor, etc. It's always going to be like that. So we have a fiqh ruling, and that fiqh ruling was established through proofs and evidences, or it could have been established through general proofs and evidences, but by a specific qaida fiqhiyya. Alright? So here, this discussion is that the ruling of making SalatulEid in the household is based off of other fiqh rulings. And to get to a thorough and accurate, a valid, strong and sharp determination or destination, you have to understand those previous fiqh rulings and those previous fiqh principles. Alright? So, that's in brief. So, first and foremost, the first fiqh ruling that this one is based off of, because this is a new issue. Last year, there was no corona, COVID-19. I don't think it was the year before. Obviously, this is the new coronavirus. But even in the old coronavirus, whenever it broke out, or the SARS, or Ebola, so on and so forth, it wasn't like how it is today, in which it's in every single location, every single country. People are protesting in Italy, protesting in Germany, protesting in Florida, Georgia, Texas. It's nothing like how it is now. All right, nothing. We have the different political wars. It's a Chinese virus. The evil Chinese communists, the president of the United States, so on and so on and so forth. There's a whole different dynamic how it is now. And the same applies to other illnesses and plagues and pandemics. It was nothing like how it is. And I warn the viewers and the watchers from trying to make a complete qiyas. Okay, trying to make an identical mold to Ta'un and Was. And there's nothing like how it was in the time of the Sahaba. We said that the Sahaba were not ruled by kuffar. They did not blindly follow the kuffar. They did not love the kuffar. They did not look to the kuffar for guidance. The kuffar did not train their military, supplying them with jets and planes and weapons. The kuffar were not their doctors. There was no central banking system. Okay, the world is different, and this new coronavirus is very, very different. La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. We ask Allah for protection from those vices which are hidden and vices which are in plain public sight. So it's very different, all right? It's not like nothing like pretty much before, and which is worldwide pandemic, the bubonic plague, the black plague. It came from China. It crashed into Eastern and Western Europe, so on and so forth. It's nothing like how it is now. All right, which we're talking about wherever you go. So with that being said, can you make the SalatulEid in your home? That is based off of what is the ruling on making SalatulEid. Is it obligatory or is it just recommended? Is it an obligation upon an individual or is it an obligation upon every single Muslim? And there's a huge difference between the two. Fard kifaya, fard ayn versus sunnah. Fard ayn meaning every single Muslim must do it. It must know it, must perform it. Who has the ability? Fard Kifaya means that when a patch of Muslims, a group of Muslims, a congregation of Muslims, when they do it, then the rest of the Muslims are exempt from doing it. They don't have to do it. It's been done. And obviously something which is recommended, mustahab, masnoon, sunnah, okay, is something which you do not have to do under any circumstance. And it's nothing more than a virtue which you should do. You should not avoid, but it is no sin included in staying away from that act. So therefore, what is the ruling on making SalatulEid? Once we know the ruling of SalatulEid, then we can get into the serious discussion of, do we make it in the house because of COVID-19, or is just, we're exempt from it. The second fiqh ruling that pertains to this one is, what is the ruling on making up SalatulEid? Should you make up the Eid if you miss it with the Imam? Or is it obligatory for you to make up if you miss it with the Imam? Okay, but I think that many people, they begin to involve themselves with this discussion, and they're losing focus of the reality of COVID-19. They're losing reality. They're losing their sense of reality of the coronavirus, and that's why I keep placing emphasis on this, that it's not the same. We're not talking someone who overslept for the Eid, someone who's sick, someone that was too far. My horse or my donkey was stuck in the mud. My cart couldn't make it to the Eid. We're talking about a government mandate that people are not allowed to congregate longer than, or with a group larger than 5 people, 10 people, 15, 20 people, etc. 6 feet apart, in which the masjids in the United States, except for the few whom Allah has mercy upon, have shut their doors. Period. The Imam, if he's doing the khutbah, he's doing it with one brother making the adhan, 2 people sitting in front of him, a couple people are security at the door. That's it. So there isn't an accident, or a person oversleeping, or a person being sick or weak and they miss the Eid. And then we have the kalam of the fuqaha making up SalatulEid. Do you make it in congregation? Do you recite out loud? Do you make the 7 takbirs, the 5 takbirs? We're talking about intentional abandonment of the congregational Eid prayer. And once more, we must realize the reality of this situation. It is not the same ruling as someone missing the Eid because they overslept. And then, well, if you don't make it up in a household, you don't have to make it because, no, we're talking about systematic cancellation of SalatulEid in congregation. All right? So it's the difference. So I humbly feel, and my humble opinion, is that the most important thing, the biggest target, the primary objective is the hukum SalatulEid. And once we have established that, making it up, so on and so forth, isn't that substantial, because we are intentionally leaving off SalatulEid because of an excuse, because of udhr shar'i. Okay, it's against the law. You're going to get locked up. If you get caught doing it, you may get sick, you may catch the virus, so on and so forth. But it's not fawat. It's a difference. And I've seen a few videos on YouTube, English-speaking people, Arabic-speaking people, and I've read many articles as well of people that keep bringing up that word fawat al-Eid ma'al imam. إذا فاتت مع الإمام هل يقضي هل no, there's no fawat. This is intentional tafweet. We ourselves are missing on the Eid intentionally because of our circumstances. طيب. So with that being said, brothers and sisters, we have done many videos on SalatulEid. Please go back to them. I think there's actually a playlist or 2 on the fiqh of Eid, let alone our intensive and comprehensive workshop on Ramadan and fasting, and the book that was published and explained last year and the year before last. Please go back to those videos. We don't repeat them and reiterate them. We're just going to mention a few fawaid here from some of the ulama with regards to the ruling of SalatulEidain and how important it is once we refresh and remind ourselves and rejuvenate this spirit that it's very, very, very important in the sight of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I think that it'll become easy for us to determine, can we or can we not, should we or should we not offer it in the household, regardless of the actual description. We're reading here from Ahkam al-Eidain fi Sunnat al-Mutahhara, Sheikh Ali Halabi. He says here on page 37, Hukmu SalatulEidain. And we've read from this book before as well. We'll mention it briefly. قال الشيخ الإسلام ابن تيمية ولهذا رجحنا أن صلاة العيد واجبة على الأعيان كقول أبي حنيفة وغيره وأحد أقوال الشافعي وأحمد أو أحد القولين في مذهب أحمد وقول من قال لا تجب في قاية البعد فإنها من أعظم شعائر الإسلام والناس يجتمعون لها أعظم من الجمعة وقد شرعها فيه التكبير وقول من قاله فرض على الكفاية لا ينضبط إلى آخره. First, Sheikh Ali Hassan, may Allah reward him, he mentions the kalam of Sheikh Islam ibn Taymiyyah, and Sheikh Islam Taymiyyah's view is that the Eid is mandatory, is fard ayn, it's wajib ayni. It is an obligation upon every single capable Muslim. Ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah, he says this was the opinion of Abu Hanifa and others. Abu Hanifa and others. And it was one of the versions of Shafi'i's view, and also one of the versions of Ahmad's madhab. Right. Then he says, as far as those who say that the Eid is not mandatory, he says, and that's very far. Fi ghayat al-bu'd. This is weak and it's feeble, he says. And that is because the Eid prayer is from the greatest outward manifestations of Islam. It's from the greatest religious symbols. Muslims walking, Muslims sitting. Even the non-Muslims, they'll bear witness to this. BBC, Jazeera, the news, CBS, NBC, etc. They're all showing you this major congregation of hundreds and thousands of Muslims sitting, listening, praying, kids playing in the park. This is a festival. It's a holiday for Muslims worldwide. So Ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah ta'ala, he says this congregation is greater than that of Jumu'ah. It's greater than that of Jumu'ah. So let's ask ourselves the question. Many non-Muslims know about Jumu'ah. My co-worker is a Muslim. My employee is a Muslim. My employer is a Muslim, etc. They know that I have to go to Jumu'ah. But the news coverage for Jumu'ah, is it anything like that of the Eid? Abadan. Is the Jumu'ah going to be on the calendar? No, it's not. It's not going to be on a non-Muslim calendar, Eid Fitr for Muslims, Eid Adha for Muslims. There's not going to be no Jumu'ah service at the White House, them celebrating it, them announcing it. No. But they will acknowledge and announce Happy Eid Fitr, Eid Adha for all Muslims. So it's proof of what Shaykh Islam Taymiyyah is saying. I'm talking about our modern 2020 world, is that the congregation and the gathering of Eid Fitr and Adha is greater than that of Jumu'ah. So if Jumu'ah is obligatory for everyone, those who, the men who are sane, who are not traveling, etc., then it's going to be obligatory as well. And of course, there's going to be some discrepancies with regards to that qiyas, because women don't have to go to Jumu'ah, sick people don't have to go to Jumu'ah. All right, but you get the point that he's trying to make. طيب, and that was taken from Majmu' al-Fatawa. Then Shaykh Ali Halabi, he says, وقال العلامة الشوكاني في السيل الجرار اعلم أن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم لازم هذه الصلاة في العيدين ولم يتركها في عيد من الأعياد وأمر الناس بالخروج إليها حتى أمر بخروج النساء العواتق وذوات الخدور والحيض وأمر الحيض أن يتعزلن الصلاة ويشهدن الخير ودعاة المسلمين حتى أمر من لا جلباب لها أن تلبسها صاحبتها. And then he quotes Ash-Shawkani rahimahullah ta'ala. He says, know for sure that the Prophet ﷺ stood by the Eid prayers. Lazim. He stood by them. He always did them, and he never ever left them off. Never, not one Eid. And he commanded the people to go out there too. Even women that were in the house, old women, young virgin maidens, old women, all types of women, they could not stay in their homes and preserve their chastity and their shyness and their bashfulness. They had to leave and engage in this social congregation, regardless of whatever type of woman it was. My young daughter, I don't want her outside the house. This old woman, she doesn't want to go outside the house. Everyone had to go out. He says even the huyad, menstruating women, a woman that was not going to pray, she was commanded by the Prophet of Islam to leave her home and go to the congregation. And the Prophet ﷺ, he commanded the menstruating women to avoid the actual sitting, the place of prayer, to mix with the sisters that are not going to pray. And he commanded them, he says, وَيَشْهَدْنَ الْخَيْرَ وَدَعْوَةَ الْمُسْلِمِينَ, and they should bear witness to the blessings of this day, the goodies of this day, the goodness of this day. Al-Khair. وَدَعْوَةُ الْمُسْلِمِينَ, and the supplications of the Muslims, meaning in the congregation. Because she can pray where? In her house. She can make dua in her house. There's khair in her house, but he wanted her to be involved in the khair of the Muslims as a whole. Last but not least, he says, even a woman who had nothing to wear was to borrow a garment from her girlfriend. A sister who has no jilbab is to borrow the jilbab, or a sister who knows that another sister can't afford anything to wear. Here, take my extra jilbab and come out. We're going to the Eid. Tayyib. And he mentions here other proofs and evidences here with regards to the command of the Prophet. وَهَذَا كُلُّهُ يَدُلُّ عَلَى أَنَّ هَذِهِ الصَّلَاةَ وَاجِبَةٌ وُجُوبًا مُؤَكَّدًا عَلَى الْأَعْيَانِ لَا عَلَى الْكِفَايَةِ والأمر بالخروج يستلزم الأمر بالصلاة لمن لا عذر له بفحوى الخطاب لأن الخروج وسيلة إليها ووجوب الوسيلة يستلزم وجوب المتوسل إليه والرجال أولى من النساء بذلك. And then Shawkani goes on swinging his sword, breaking down the technicalities of the language that the Prophet ﷺ used. And the fact that he told the people to leave their homes, to get out, to go out. And obviously them going out is a means towards the prayer. So if it was obligatory for them to go out, then the prayer had to be obligatory. ثم قال رحمه الله ومن الأدلة على وجوبها أنها مسقطة للجمعة إذا اتفقتا في يوم واحد وما ليس بواجب لا يسقط ما كان واجبا وقد ثبت أنه صلى الله عليه وسلم لازم جماعة منذ شرعت إلى أن مات وانضم إلى هذه اللازمة الدائمة أمره للناس بأن يخرجوا إلى الصلاة. Another major blow that he strikes for his argument, Shukani, he says, is that if Jum'ah and Eid happen on the same day, then the people have the option of offering Eid without making Jum'ah. They can pray Eid without Jum'ah. They just make Dhuhr. They don't have to pray Jum'ah congregation because they already had a khutbah and a congregational salah. He says, so how can a recommended prayer take the place of an obligatory prayer of Jum'ah? It's not making any sense. So he says, the fact that the Prophet did it all the time, the fact that the Prophet commanded all the time, the fact that the Prophet allowed those who made the Eid in the morning on Friday not to make Jum'ah clearly proves that it is mandatory. Then he concludes this chapter by saying, وقال شيخنا الألباني في تمام المنة بعد إراده حديث عطية فالأمر المذكور يدل على الوجوب وإذا وجب الخروج وجبت الصلاة من باب أولى كما لا يخفى فالحق وجوبها لا سنيتها فحسب. Shaykh Al-Albani rahimahullah says in his book Tamam al-Minna, the notes that he made on the beneficial book Fiqh Sunnah of Shaykh Sayyid Sabiq rahimahullah, Shaykh Al-Albani says after the hadith of Ma'atiyah, he says, so the Prophet ﷺ's command, his amr, proves that it's wajib. Like we've explained in the classes of Lu'lu' Marjan, is that when the Prophet commands something, it is obligatory until proven to be other than obligatory. So therefore, if the Prophet made the people go out, then of course the prayer is even more obligatory. So therefore, the Eid prayer is mandatory and it is not sunnah. That's the end of that chapter. This is only one selection from one book, from one modern day sheikh. The point is to give you a brief glimpse into the views of some of these strong ulama, these muhaqqiqeen, and what they said about SalatulEid. And inshallah ta'ala, I'm going to post a link in the video, an article that we did, I think it was last year, with regards to what is the ruling of SalatulEid and the kalam of the ulama. So in brief, and to summarize things, okay, the scholars do not agree that Eid is obligatory. Some say it is recommended. Some say that it is obligatory upon the Muslims as a whole. And some hold the view that it is obligatory upon the Muslims individually, like these scholars, Shaykh al-Islam Taymiyyah, Shawkani, Shaykh al-Albani, and other great ulama, Abu Hanifa, etc., as we just mentioned. So therefore, making it in the house is going to be based off of what you know, what you've been taught, what you've heard, and what you feel in your heart to be correct with regards to making it outside the house. So if you say that Eid is obligatory, then you're going to say, we're going to pray it in our homes. And we cannot allow COVID-19 to stop us from an Islamic obligation for which there is a substitute. Listen carefully. There is a substitute. It's not like it's something that we just don't have the ability to do. But we can do it. We can make Jumu'ah. We can do the Eid. We can make I'tikaf, etc. There is a substitute for it. So a worldwide pandemic cannot remove an Islamic obligation or an Islamic recommended act for that argument, for the argument as well, as long as we have the ability to do a substitute. To make a substitute teacher. You don't have the day off of school just because the teacher is sick. They bring in a substitute teacher, and you still have to go to school and you still have to study. Okay? As far as if there's no substitute teachers, then say you get out of school early. That's a different story, right? So with that being said, Allah knows best. The view that seems to be most correct, Wallahu alam, is that SalatulEid is mandatory upon those who have the ability to go. So if it is, based off of that view of those scholars, and Allah truly knows best, then that will prove that the people should not abandon it in their homes. And they should make SalatulEid in their homes. And it's different than those who miss the Eid and they want to make it up. That's different. We all know that we're not going to pray Eid in the park with 500 Muslims or 200 Muslims or 5,000 Muslims or 50,000 Muslims. That's just not going to happen because of the pandemic. So we're making our intentions not to pray in congregation. So based off of that view, or the view that says it's fard kifaya, or even that is recommended, you should make it in your home. Bi'idhnillahi ta'ala. You can't lose by doing that. Inshallah ta'ala. Khayrun bila shar. Khayrun bila shar. Bi'idhnillah. Now, how do you make it in your home? Do you make it in congregation, or do you make it individually? When we come across the kalam of the fuqaha in this issue, we find that they talk about those who missed the prayer, and that they should make it up fidadan, separately, and not jama'atan. And others, they mention that you can make it up, and you should make it up in jama'ah, just like you missed it in jama'ah. And there, inshallah ta'ala, is no it doesn't seem to be any strong concrete proof stating that you can't make it up in congregation. So we're talking about intentionally missing it. So therefore, no doubt, we should make it in congregation in our homes. So therefore, a man, he has his wife, his children, or his wives. He's more than one wife. He has stepchildren, stepsons, stepdaughters, whatever the case may be, cousin, aunt, uncle, whoever is in the household of the Muslims. He should lead them in the Eid prayer. He should lead them in the Eid prayer, okay? As far as how to make the Eid prayer in house, then it should be done in the exact manner that you would make it outside of the house, as we have explained in those other videos. The number of takbirs, what to recite, how many rak'at, recite Allah, etc. etc. Now, many modern day scholars read different fatwa, of the different scholars from Saudi, the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, different fatwa of scholars from Egypt and other places. They say that the prayer should be done without the khutbah. They hold the view, they say, that it should not include the khutbah. Now the question is why? Why not? Because everyone isn't a suitable khatib, everyone can't speak, everyone doesn't have the knowledge. Or is there something else behind that? A political influence, in which they don't want people talking and speaking and influencing people without the grasp and the control and the clutch of the government. Allahu Alam. I didn't read the explanation for that, but most of the fatwas that I read online, they all stated without a khutbah. Without a khutbah and just a salah. Why is that? Because everyone can't give a khutbah. It'll become a mess. It'll become crowded, sloppy. What's the harm if the people are in their homes? What harm could there be? Or is it more to that with regards to people speaking and holding congregations without the control and the influence and without the surveillance of the government? It's very important facts to think about now. Okay? Or, number three, the third option, do they give that fatwa just to state that you don't have to make the khutbah because the khutbah is recommended? But who said the khutbah is recommended? Listening to the khutbah is recommended? Or does the imam have to establish the khutbah, but the people don't have to stay, all of them? There's a huge difference between the two. Between the imam having the responsibility of speaking to the people, and the people can pray and go home, or they can sit. And we know that the khutbah is supposed to be after the prayer, not like Jummah. It's a difference. In which everyone who attends the Jummah, those who attend Jummah, they have to listen to the khutbah. The men. That's clear. But the Eid is different. So if it's just an option to do the khutbah, or even an option to listen to the khutbah, why not tell the people to do it? And why specifically state without a khutbah? Without a khutbah. Me personally, I feel there is some other type of influence in that. Make the prayer in your homes, but do not establish a khutbah. In which the people feel that they can start talking and speaking in their homes and we don't know what they're saying. Allahu Alam. Allah knows best about that. So what's important is for sure, inshallah ta'ala, make the prayer in your home. The man should lead his family. If a woman lives without a husband or a father or whatever the case may be, she should lead her women folk in her house, which is permissible for women to make congregation. The view of the ulama who are that opinion that women can make jama'ah as well. And the woman can lead the women in the jama'ah as well, as Aisha radiallahu anha and others used to do from the sahabiyat, from the salaf. Alright? Tayyib. So therefore, if you want to make a khutbah, I personally don't see a prohibition not to. I don't see a prohibition. I don't see anything concrete, anything strong stating that you can't. Allahu Alam. Okay? It's not fawat. It's not missing. This is not one rebelling against the Muslim ruler or anything like this. The khutbah, the Eid is cancelled. And if a man can speak to his family and talk to them and address them, why not? Why not give them some type of advice? Why not? Allahu Alam. What's important is make the 2 rak'ah and the normal manner that you will make this salah Eid with the takbirs, how you recite, etc. inshallah ta'ala. And I think last but not least is I think we should try our best, if we can, to minimize the individual prayers. So if there's a prohibition of more than 10 people meeting up, and your next door neighbor, they're Muslims, there are 3 people in your house, and 7 next door, pray together. Whatever, you have masks on, or distance, or whatever you have to do. Okay? We should try our best to come as closest to the sunnah as possible. Allah surely knows best. This is a very brief discussion. And these conclusions and these results are things which seem obvious to me. الَّذِي يَظْهَرُ لِي أَنَا. Okay? This is obligatory. This is what this scholar says. I can't say that. I can only say what seems obvious, what seems apparent, which makes sense to me in light of looking into the speech of the people of knowledge, the ulama of the past, the modern day researchers and scholars today. You do what you feel is best for yourself, for your soul, and for your family. Jazakumullahu khairan.